We have a webinar today. So let's jump into it. Now I'm going to transition and actually share my screen now. And there's Kyle and I. That's me. That's Kyle on the right. Oh, so welcome everybody. We're really, really grateful for everybody to be here. This is actually the fourth time we've run this webinar. We call it our Industry Expert Webinar Series. My name's Ari. I'm the Director of Customer Success at Tribe. I'm joined today by Kyle Hagge. He is the Lead Community Manager at Morning Brew. For those of you not familiar with Morning Brew, just a phenomenal, I know it's grown to be a lot more than perhaps my narrow definition, but it's my 5 to 7 minute unbelievable daily read to kind of keep me up on all the latest and greatest news. And there's a couple of other just fantastic like kind of content newsletters that I also dabble in to stay in touch, and a couple of other things. But I guess we'll let Kyle talk more about Morning Brew.
Yeah.
But
I have heard they have a great education team as well.
I've heard that as well,
Yeah.
and I heard the person that runs that is fantastic. So let's just move right into the agenda for today. So you're going to hear a little bit more from me, but then we're going to turn it over to Kyle. So I'm just going to talk a little bit more about what our Tribe webinar series is, our Industry Expert webinar series. Going to go through the webinar format. We're going to turn it over to Kyle. We're going to save about 15 minutes for the end for Q&A. And then I'll just remind you all both now and at the end that this is being recorded. So you have to jump out, your internet cuts out, you get really hungry, you happen to be in the Eastern time zone and it's lunch, or you're far ahead and it's dinner time. Don't worry, we'll be sending out an email of the recording to everybody and also hosting it in our community. I'm going to show you where that is in a moment. So what is the Industry Expert Webinar Series? So really the goal is to bring industry experts to community builders. So what does that mean? We want to help community builders build through collaboration and engagement with industry experts. Most of the content that you'll experience in this webinar series is agnostic to any one community platform. The goal is to foster more best practices and share the knowledge with a wider group of people. For those of you that are not familiar with Tribe, who's hosting today's webinar, we want to give you an awesome first impression. So what better way for us to do that than to introduce you to Tribe in such a selfless way? For those who are not familiar with us, Tribe empowers businesses to build unique and distinct communities under their brand using the Tribe platform, which is a software as solution product. And for those of you that are familiar with us, this webinar series hopefully accomplishes its goal of driving more value beyond the tools you provide, that we provide through our platform to help you be more successful with your community building efforts. Finally, I wanted to just share more about the webinars that are in this Industry Expert webinar series, where you can access them, and it'll also kind of show you where you can come back and revisit today's webinar. So I got here, this is Tribe Campfire. This is our community. So we use our own product. Right now I'm in one of our spaces called Community Insights. I've selected the Industry Expert tag here, and you'll see, Kyle, there's you, famous. So you'll see this is where we promote our new webinars, and also where we host the recording. So our last one was about 2 months ago with Sasha Mombarts on practical methods to measure community KPIs. We had a previous one with Geronimo Bacon, where we talked about building brand-led communities. And then the kickoff one was with how to engage your community members with Richard Millington. So all of these are accessible within the Tribe Campfire community. Would highly recommend, if you haven't checked it out, to come in and visit the Community Insight space to get even more access to great content asynchronously, on your own time. So let's get back to it. Kyle, I'm almost going to pass the mic over to you. I'm just going to take care of a little bit of housekeeping. So again, as I said, the webinar is being recorded. The next thing is everybody's muted. But we definitely encourage you to both be vocal in the chat, as well as send your questions into the Q&A section. So I'm going to be auditing the Q&A section. we're going to save questions until the end, and I will queue those questions up for Kyle for the last 15 minutes or so. Finally, we need your feedback. I will post our survey right into the chat towards the end, but you'll also be getting an email to fill out a very brief survey just to give us your ideas and other ways that you think that we can make this to more engaging webinar for everybody, especially if you've come to a couple. Maybe you want us to start mixing it up. Last but not least, introducing Kyle Hagge. As I said, he's the lead community manager at Morning Brew, working on the education team. So now maybe understand the joke that we pass back and forth. Everybody's on the inside now. And building products designed to accelerate the careers of ambitious professionals. Previously, he worked at Marquette University, the Housing Authority of the City of Milwaukee, Ballot Ready, and College Possible. So Kyle, I am going to pass things over to you. Please go ahead. You can share your screen. I'm also going to turn my microphone off so that no one is distracted by me and all eyes are on you. Take it away.
All right. Thank you so much. And Tribe, thanks for having me. And also thanks to everyone for showing up. I appreciate that. And hopefully what I share with you will be of some value. All right. Two things before I share my screen. One is I will try to monitor the chat. So if you want to make this interactive, you can. It's a lot more fun for me. And then second, shout out to whoever, not this photo, but the other photo that was on the Tribe website. That's like a photo of me for like 8 years ago. So shout out to your research team. Whoever dug that up deserves a raise. That's phenomenal. All right, what's up, Ari?
That's Pritish, our director of marketing.
All right. Well, I don't even have that photo. So if he wants to send it to me, that would be lovely.
Amazing.
All right, I'm going to share my screen now, and let's get into this. All right. So again, what's up, everyone? My name is Kyle Hagge. I am the lead community manager at Morning Brew. If you don't know who we are, I think Ari did a good job. We are not a coffee company. We're a digital media company. We started as a single newsletter about, I think, 6 or 7 years ago. Basically makes you smarter about what's going on in the world in 5 minutes or less. Who would have thought that sending emails can make you money, but here we are. So that's Morning Brew. Let me tell you a little bit more about myself quickly. Ari alluded to a few other things that I have done in the past. I've done AmeriCorps. I worked for the Housing Authority. I did some innovation programming at Marquette University, kind of had my own digital media community company called Bridge City, did some civic tech, had a little stint with the startup. And I've put these 3 words up here: community, digital media, and innovation. And what I think is I like about this is it's kind of establishing your personal monopoly. This is actually something we talk about in our courses. Like, based upon your experiences, what are the unique things that you've done that give you a view of the world that is hard for other people to replicate? Like, not many people have had those 3 sets of experiences. Now you have this really unique point of view that makes you stand out. You can talk about it in a really authentic way, and you won't have a lot of competition. It is your personal monopoly. And I think as businesses grow, they should also be thinking about what is their monopoly in their space. What are the 3 unique elements of your business or the people on your team that you can bring together in a unique way to build really authentic, really unique products? And, I think that's been one of the benefits or one of the differentiators of Morning Brew as well. So this is a high level overview of the company. Like I said, we started out with a single newsletter. We now have many different newsletter verticals. We have podcasts. I've heard those are all the rage. We have Business Casual. Alex, the co-founder, has Founders Journal and Imposters. We are very active on social media. We do events, and we have a branded content division as well. And then the team that I'm working on is the newest business unit at Morning Brew, is our education team. What I want to say about this is community, and I'll get into this, like, everyone is talking about community right now. I think the first 5 things that I mentioned here, the newsletters down to the branded content, are really audience-based businesses, which is not a bad thing. And I'll talk about this in a little bit. They're more focused on audience And education, what our team is really focused on is community. I think there's a distinct difference between those two categories. One is not better, one is not worse, but they elicit different strategies and different results for your businesses. So, like I said, audience's newsletter. Our education courses are, or our community is really on the education courses. So here's our website, a little branding. We're trying to do business education without the BS. So we have a variety of cohort-based courses that, kind of strip away the stuff you don't need to know. They're hyper relevant. They're super fun. You're meeting other really ambitious, dynamic professionals. You're accelerating your career. You're joining this great alumni community. It really is centered around this community engagement rather than an audience, which, is pretty one directional. So why do community? If you're a business or even an individual and you're thinking about, hey, community is really hot right now. I see it every day on Twitter. Why should I get into community? I think a lot of people initially thought of community kind of as a write-off, something that you do and it's like a nice to have, but you don't need to do it. And it's like a marketing expense. You're not actually going to make money from it. I think things have changed. And I think the best companies doing the best form of community are having all of these benefits and they're making more money. They're generating more revenue. So, I will tell people here's 6 reasons why you should get into community for your business. The first is probably the most important. It generates revenue. It is a sustainable strategy, right? Morning Brew had a free newsletter. There wasn't really a way for people to give us more money. We were not really a direct to consumer business. We were making money with ads. There is some portion of the people in the Morning Brew audience who wanted to go deeper with us, wanted to pay us more money. And by creating a community-based program like our education courses, we were able to do that thing. The second is it will create brand evangelists. When you have a unique, deep community experience with a brand or with one of their products, it makes you a super fan. It's those people that take, our courses that then are more likely to buy our merch. They're more likely to share our courses and Morning Brew with their friends. They're more likely to talk about it. It just gives you almost free marketing spend because you're creating all of these evangelists for your brand. The other thing I love is that it helps you find pain points faster. When you establish authentic relationships with people, they're not afraid to tell you what they think you're doing wrong. And we see this all the time in our courses. It's actually how we improve our courses is we get a lot of feedback and we actually implement it. But getting that relationship with Morning Brew readers, they'll give us feedback on the newsletters, on our podcasts, on our social media strategy, pretty much everything. It becomes this focus group on demand for your business to continuously improve. You have now more authentic relationships with your customers that you wouldn't have in an audience-based business. Fourth, this goes back to generating revenue. It's going to increase the lifetime value of your customer. We now have more ways for people to find value in the Morning Brew ecosystem and for us to capture more of their wallet share. We've had people now sign up for every single one of our courses. They've probably paid us now like $4,500. That's a really, really, really deep relationship. And we wouldn't have been able to extract that value and we wouldn't have been able to offer that value to them without some form of community product as well. Lastly, it definitely displays social, or second to last, it displays social proof. People are having fun. They're enjoying the experience. They're tweeting about it. They're putting it on LinkedIn. Again, it is great organic marketing for your entire company to have any element of your company focused on community. It is going to create those super fans. It's going to display social proof. It's going to get more people to at least check out what you're up to. And also, this is on the talent side of things. When a lot of people are talking about your brand and it seems to be everywhere, people then want to work for you as well. So it's a huge talent attractor in addition to making your customers really, really happy. And then lastly, maybe the most important part, any business that has some form of community attached to it, even if that's just one business unit, what you're essentially doing is humanizing your product. and this is something that I think Morning Brew has been great at since the jump, is people know who writes the newsletter. Like Neil is like a micro celebrity on Twitter, and Maddie and Jamie, like we all have these unique brands. And when people see the people behind the brand, I think they're much more likely to engage with it. It feels more human. It feels more authentic. Community takes that idea and maximizes it. Now you're having these really deep and authentic relationships with a brand that you maybe initially liked or loved. And now you're like, wow, I know the team behind it. I know the humans behind it. They're great people. They're authentic. They're actually trying to help me, in our case, accelerate my career. And that has this halo effect to all the other parts of the business. Now, when they read a newsletter or they listen to a podcast, they feel like they actually know the people behind it. And I think that is just invaluable for any business. So that is why I think you should consider doing some form of community in your business. Now, the chat today was how to grow and sustain a community through customer education. And obviously, that's exactly what we're doing at Morning Brew. We have a literal education business. I see, Olivia, what's the size of your company? My team, the education team, is like, I want to say like 10 people or so. We've done a few different hires in the past day. And then the entire Morning Brew team is like 220 people. Do not quote me on that, but they're approximations that are 99% true. So we have a small team, and I'll get into all this in just a second. So how to grow and sustain a community through customer education, and let's get into it. I wanted to put something here like medium takes edition. They're not going to be hot takes. They're not going to be cold takes, but I think there's maybe some elements of counterintuitiveness that are helpful, that are going to help you, grow and sustain a community yourself, mainly through educating your customers. All right. So I talked about this up top, but I want to reiterate. What is community? There is a million definitions. This word is the king of buzzwords. We went from innovation to community. Everyone talks about it now. I think people have these wildly technical definitions of what is a community and what isn't a community. And maybe they're helpful. I think the most basic answer is probably the right one. Like, a community is a group that supports each other through a shared experience. I think that covers most of what people are talking about when they talk about community. Now, this is where I think people often misinterpret or misuse community, is when they're really talking about an audience. So audience is one directional for the most part. It is one to many. I would consider a newsletter you're writing. People are like, we have a great community that reads the newsletter. I would say that's like a misuse of that definition. There's not a lot of, there might be some back and forth audience to you, but it's still one directional, and it's a pretty shallow relationship. I like to say that community is, instead of one to many, it is many to many. So you actually want to create a space where not only are you talking to your customer and your customer is talking to you, but your customers are talking to each other. That, to me, is what separates an audience-based business or an audience-based product from a community-based business or community-based product. And there's tons of benefits of community that I'm going to get into. But one is, when you have a many-to-many framework, accountability goes up, retention goes up, actually finishing what you say you're going to finish goes up. There's a huge difference between taking a course on YouTube, which I would say is an audience-based platform, and taking a course, with us or with any of the other players in ed tech that are community focused. You'll complete, like 3% of people complete these online audience-based courses. Our programs have like 95% completion rate because they are community. You get that benefit. Sometimes they're harder to pull off. And again, this is not to say audience is worse or community is better. They are different strategies for different products for different people. And you have to be crystal clear on what you're building. Are you building an audience-based product or a community-based product? All right. So my first take is that community is so much more than a Slack channel of your existing audience. The number of times I've just seen like people say, oh, I have a great community. I have 500 members in like a Discord. Well, what do you do? I don't know. We just like all kind of hang out. I don't think that's getting to the core of what community can be. You're building a community not just to gather people, but to help them solve a problem. So I think actually Shopify actually is like a good example of a community that is really interesting. And what I mean by that is their Shopify community is not just teaching you how to use Shopify products. And it's not just talking about their products. What they've done is they've identified a certain persona that engages with Shopify, right? It's the entrepreneur or the small business. And now they're continuing to add value through education to that persona by helping them solve other problems. And some of these problems are best solved by this community strategy. So yes, they do have like a forum, which I would say is like audience based, but they have events, they have marketplaces, they're getting entrepreneurs in their audience to form communities and talk to other entrepreneurs. And it's really bringing that community model to life. It's adding value. It's creating brand evangelists, and it's allowing them to make more money as well. So the first thing I would say is, if you're a business that's looking to get into community or wants to build community through customer education, go through these steps. First is like, understand what is the persona that uses our product. Who is the type of person that uses our product? Then don't just build a community that tells them more about your product. Think about what problem does this persona also face? It should be related or, adjacent to your product. What problem do they face? How could a community strategy help them solve these problems? And then what experiences can we design for them in a community setting that will help them achieve their goals, help them achieve the community goals? Break it down into those steps, because so many times I see a business want to do community, and then it's just a Slack channel that talks about their product. That's kind of lame. Like, I've been in those. I don't think people really enjoy them. Like, they want more resources. They want cool experiences. They want to be able to connect with other entrepreneurs. Create that environment. Don't just, throw people in a Slack channel. So it brings me to my next point is, when you first start building a community, a lot of times people go immediately to the tech. And again, the tech is important. I think platforms like Tribe, platforms like Circle are super, super, super important. But do not put the cart before the horse. The tech is on the margins. The number of times I've seen people that want to build these really cool community experiences, and they're like, what is the most wild tech? Let's give everyone an Oculus headset and let's send them to the metaverse. And then let's have them and they've just forgot that it isn't about the tech. It is about the quality of experience. There is a reason we're all on Zoom. It is not that Zoom is the most wildly cool tech out there. It's the tech that is not a lot of friction. Everyone's comfortable with it. And it enables a really high quality experience because everyone knows what is going on. And that is more important. So whenever you're building community or community experiences, focus first on the experience. What are the outcomes we want? How are we going to create a really lively, engaged, session? What are the speakers going to be like? What problem are we helping people solve? What are the takeaways we hope to have? And then once you have that identified, then pick the platform that is going to help you pull that experience off. Do not put the tech or the platform first. I think it is marginal. The best thing about community is it's authentic. It feels human. It doesn't need the most wild tech. Like, I like to say, it's kind of like going to a party. We've all been to parties that you're like, wow, where am I? This house is so nice, but you don't know any of the people and it's not really structured and you don't end up having a good time. And then we've all had those nights where we stay up till 3 a.m. in a shitty basement, but we're with our really good friends, and the experience, the quality of experience is so much better. Those are the nights you remember. Those are the experiences you remember. So focus first on experience, then pivot to the technology. The second take I have is that community managers are architects and they're not stars, and that you really should be focusing on community design. I like to say there is a difference between being the life of a party and the host of a party. And community managers are hosts of the party. Now, sometimes it might require you to be the life of a party at a certain time, but that's not really what you're there for. You are creating environments where other people, your community, can achieve their goals, can be educated in the way you want to educate them. You have to view it, yeah, exactly like an architect in a building, where like if the architect leaves the building and the building falls over, like that's a bad building. That's not the point. You want to design a building where the signage is clear, people know where they're going, people are engaging with other people. Each different part of your community has a clear reason for being there. And if you pull back, the community is still strong because you've established this many-to-many framework. So, I think you can focus on almost these 4 elements when you're first starting out designing your community. The first is onboarding. Onboarding is really important. It is often said, but it's true. You get one chance at a first impression. And so I like to say that onboarding, you're actually riding momentum. It is very similar to when someone makes a New Year's resolution and now you're talking to them in January. It's so top of mind. They just joined your community. They're super excited to be there. They're like, oh, I'm totally going to crush it. And you want to keep that energy up. You want to make a human connection right away in onboarding. You want to definitely don't leave them hanging. Tell them what's good. That's like the January phase. People are high. Keep that up. Then you go into engagement. Engagement is more difficult. It's like the February at the New Year's resolution when we now have stopped going to the gym for a week and we're like, maybe I don't need to be as healthy as I thought. And this is where a lot of communities start to fall apart. It's because it's kind of human nature. People will design experiences or educational opportunities or any form of engagement. They'll design what they want to see. So you'll design if you're an extrovert, you'll design something that is probably quite different than this. There's lots of engagement and it's back and forth and you're in breakout rooms, you're meeting all these people and you're like, oh my God, this event is going to be amazing. I love it. Well, there's more types of people than you are. And so the key to engagement is it's multimodal. You have to make sure that when someone is in your community, there is so many different ways to engage so that everyone can see themselves engaging in some element of your community, right? You should have events like this. You should have breakout rooms. You should have some stuff that's maybe more written and more thoughtful. You should have an element that connects people one-on-one because some people love one-on-one conversations as opposed to, group conversations. So really think through when you are, educating your customers and creating these experiences for them, that anyone in your community can see themselves in at least one of these platforms, or you're only going to get one type of person and you're going to see a lot of churn because people are like, I hate, this event and all they offer is this event. So I'm out. The second thing is subgroups. You will start when you get good engagement, you'll start forming subgroups. I think these are incredibly important. They're kind of like a community inside a community. This allows you to kind of niche down, focus on maybe one subset of your community. You can give better service to those specific community members because you really know what they need. But you also start to get really great insights when these subgroups are formed. And subgroups also kind of create another sense of shared identity that is really powerful for people to keep going. And it's another layer of accountability to keep people engaged in the community and driving value. So the last thing then is feedback. This is so important. There's been so many times I filled out a feedback form and I've never heard anything back from anyone ever again. And I'm like, why did I even do that? Like, what is the point? Did they even read this? Are they going to do anything about it? A community manager, or as you're building community, if you ask people for feedback, breaking news, like show that it's valuable. You have to engage with the feedback and you have to tell them like, hey, based upon this, we're going to do this, or, hey, like, this is a great idea. Let me give you more context as to why we're not doing that and see like if you understand. Don't leave people that give feedback hanging because it will undo all this great work you did in the onboarding stage, the engagement stage, the subgroup stage. And they're going to feel like, oh, well, like if my voice isn't heard, then I'm going to stop giving you feedback. Once your customers stop giving you feedback, you're kind of screwed because you need feedback to understand what is reality and what isn't. So community is also a great way to allow you to tap in to the reality of your business. One of the examples I just want to share is like community principles. I think these are really important. This is kind of helps you establish why people are coming into your community. These are the ones that we use for our products over at Morning Brew. I'll give you like a quick framework is like the 3 E's. You have examples. So if you want people to like behave in the way that you want them to behave in your community, you can give examples of people that are doing that. You can spotlight them. There's the environment. So how do you create an environment that elicits the type of behaviors that you want? And then there's expectations. And I would say principles fall under expectations. They are kind of the rules, like here's how we're expecting you to behave. So if you set up expectations high, you create an environment that, incentivize people towards the behavior, towards the goals, towards the education you want. And then you highlight or you example the people that are doing such a thing. I think you are able to kind of build a community that is respectful, is inclusive, is going to make sure that people feel like they can show up and can be themselves in your community. And you're going to also, basically broadcast, this is what we're about. If you're not about it, like our community might not be right for you. And that's totally okay. All right. Next medium take here. Friction is good. The most, maybe the other buzzword is like automation, and we're all like the robots are coming for us. They probably are, but not in community. Good news. So in audience-based business, I think automation is really, really good. It is one-to-many, and just in business in general. Obviously, you need to automate things. Things need to scale. But the thing about scale is like, I like to say like intentional, personal, and relational are the kind of pillars of community. Those are antithesis to scale. We do know that scale is important and there are elements that you will have to depersonalize. But if you go into your community and you just set everything on autopilot and you automate every single element of community, you will automate the humanity out of your community. And that's the stuff that makes your community special. It is the intentional, it is the personal, it is the relational. And for those really, really key touch points, don't automate. Like community is hard work. You're going to have to get in there with your customer and make sure that they feel like they are talking to a human, or you haven't really built a community. And so you should safeguard a lot of the key points or key elements of your community away from automation. So as an example, when we accept people into our cohorts, breaking news, like I don't write every single email personally in my inbox because that would be my only job. But we know that personalization is important. So we actually do review every application. And then we have a section that we do actually personalize. So that's down there. In addition, congrats on all you've been able to achieve since immigrating to New York City. It was an amazing story. Excited to have you in the cohort. We showed that person that this wasn't an automated process, that we actually reviewed your application. We read what you were most proud of. We reflected on it and we thought it was really cool. And we're including that as a note into your acceptance. So while everything else in this is pretty standardized, the video is the same video for everyone. Although for our first cohort, we actually made separate videos and I can barely see from staring at a ring light for that long, but this part is really important. So make sure there's a personal element in any community building activity you're doing, because that also sets them up for an expectation that, hey, this is a community. This is going to be human forward. And I think that's a really important piece that a lot of people miss when trying to build community. They try to automate everything. You just really haven't created a community product, and you're not going to be able to kind of educate your customer in the way you want to, because you're not going to have that relationship. These platforms, like I said, tech is still important. These platforms are super, super important, but it's also what you do on them that matters. And so I know that Ari was showing an example of Tribe, and you had, great comments going on under all of the events that they have happens. The other thing I see a lot of communities try to do is like, they try to automate those messages where like you'll ping someone a direct message that'll be like, thanks for attending the webinar. And then they'll be like, oh my God, it was so great. And like, hey, did you think about this though? And then that message originally is automated and no one goes back and checks. And I think that's where you're breaking down the trust of your customer and you're not really building a community product. And so, our team really prides itself on basically responding to every single person as a person. Like we don't have any automations on our platform. And I think that pays incredible dividends. Going back to the main reason, it is humanizing your product and your brand. And people love buying from other people. People love engaging with other people. And the more you can show up as a human and less as, an automated function, the more goodwill you're building to your audience and to your community. And the other thing that's cool is like, again, focus on the parts of community that are really important and automate the rest. So this is a platform we use. It's called intros.ai. It connects people in your community for one-on-one coffee chats. This is automated. People opt in when they want to during the week, but then it actually is facilitating a really great community experience, which is, again, a one-on-one conversation with two members in your community. So any community you're building for your product, I would implement, it doesn't need to be intros, but implement some system where people can meet each other not just at events, not just on forum, but actually in real life, one-to-one. Lunch Club was a huge platform. Intros is growing. Find something like that. Set your community up for success by allowing them to meet other people. They're going to have a great conversation. And again, they're going to think like, wow, it was really cool that Tribe or whatever your business is allowed me to connect with this other person that, was working on a similar problem, had a similar shared professional challenge, whatever it might be. Automate the connecting, but then let the connection be full of, humanity. All right. The other thing I've kind of talked about this is the community is going to enable you to get focus groups basically on demand. It is incredibly, incredibly powerful. I think like the people that get the most amount of feedback and take it seriously often iterate their products the fastest. They make the changes they need for their customers, and they end up being the most successful. And this is not just for our specific education product or our specific community product. This is for the overall product. Essentially, I'd like to say that we have the deepest relationships with customers of Morning Brew in the education division. We have people that often are readers of Morning Brew for years, like Ari was saying, and then they come and take a course with us. So first, they didn't even know we had courses. We didn't have courses up until a year ago. And so they are Morning Brew fans. But there isn't necessarily a good way for us to have a deep relationship with our fans in our current business structure outside of education, right? We're sending them a newsletter every day. We can't check our inbox for all 4 million people. And so it is really that one to many. When we had this education product, one, we were solving a problem for people. We were helping them accelerate their careers. We were leveling them up as business leaders. But there is this bonus benefit. And that is basically you've collected all the fans of your product into one space, and you've created this open dialogue with them where they can give you incredible ideas for all of your different business products. And you can really go to your deepest, most loyal customers that, honestly are probably more blunt than anyone because they've given us feedback and we've respected it. So they're like, oh, all right, I can tell you what I really feel. You're going to get amazing product ideas, product incremental improvements, blind spots that you're missing because you now have this relationship with your customers that's deeper because you've educated them and they're in this, really dynamic community. So focus groups on demand, feedback, incredibly important. If you do a survey, if you talk to your customers, if they give you a response, you have to show its value. People will stop doing things that they don't think other people care about. And so even if you're loving the feedback, but you're not telling them you love it, it's going to stop. And once again, you lose that lifeline to your customers, you kind of lose touch with reality. The other thing that is cool is like, it helps you, like I said, kind of figure out new products. So we are launching a new product called Morning Brew Leadership. I just use this as an example. There's also this company called Bunch.ai that was doing this like AI automated coaching. It's a really cool platform. And we knew that a lot of our customers were also using this Bunch.ai. And we were like, oh, it would be so cool to talk to them to hear what they like about it and how we can take some of the best ideas that Bunch is unlocking and port them over to our program. So we literally called a focus group because we had this deep relationship with our customers. They shared their opinions on what they liked about Bunch, what they thought about coaching, what they thought about leadership programs. If we didn't have that community, if we didn't have that connection, understanding what our customers actually want would be way, way harder. And, I threw a Slack message up here at the top. You just get these like super loyal people that they're willing to like test out new products, founding cohort. You haven't figured it fully out. Doesn't matter. Like, I really love you guys. People are willing to be guinea pigs for kind of any test we want to run with our products as well, because we've done a good job educating them. We've added additional value. We've created a community where they've met other people and they're willing to kind of reciprocate that value back to us and back to Morning Brew. The last nugget I want to say about feedback is, all right, we're doing decent on time. Sometimes people say they want X. And what I've actually found is like, sometimes it's better to give people Y and then let them help you get you to X than it is to just give them X right away. There's something really unique when you co-create a new product or a new experience or a new idea with your customers, as opposed to just like giving them the version you thought they exactly wanted right away. It creates this buy-in and it creates this sense that like, wow, I'm really like, my feedback is heard. I'm building this together. It almost makes them more loyal than if you just gave them the exact thing they wanted right away. And so there's also this element of feedback that creates this kind of sense of co-building that's incredibly strong in your community. All right, 2 slides left. First, lessons learned from a community. So some takeaways that I think might be helpful from this conversation. The first is, don't just gather folks up. Don't just put them in a Slack and say like, oh, we have a community, just like do whatever you want. You need to, like any business, help people solve a problem. Identify your personas, identify the problems they're facing, identify why they like your original product, right? Morning Brew, people want to be smarter. An education course is the perfect supplementary product to sell to people that, are engaged and want to be smarter. And we're helping them solve a problem. How do I level up in my career? How do I get that next promotion? How do I build a dynamic network? That is where we step in. We solve that problem through a community strategy. The second is, tech is on the margins. Tech is important. The ideation of the experience is way more important. Start with the experience you want to build. Start with the outcomes you want to have your customers end up with. What are the takeaways you want? Then work backwards and implement the tech that best allows for that experience. Do not just pick a platform like, I heard like Gather Round was like really cool right now. We should just do an event there. Figure out your why first. Start with your why. And then if it's appropriate, go to that platform. Find platforms that do allow these really unique experiences, but start with the experience first. Third, community managers or any community builders, you are architects, you're not stars. You are in charge of creating an environment where other people can thrive. Other people can connect with other people. And that if you leave, the whole business doesn't sync. You are not the star. You're not the life of the party. You might have to be sometimes, but your job is to be a host of a great party. Create different experiences for different types of people so everyone feels like they can have time in your community and learn something. Fourth, friction is good. Automation is the opposite of community, opposite of humanity. Community thrives when it's more human to human. So yes, you will have to automate. Yes, you will have to scale. But find the things that are the most important to keep personal and keep them personal. That friction can be really, really good. Again, it's more intentional, it's more relational, it's more personal, and that adds a lot of value. And then fifth is you get, heart loyal audience, turns them into community. You have these focus groups on demand. It's going to benefit not just the community, but your entire business unit. And that's awesome. So lastly, if you're trying to build community, here's how I would go about it. The first is analyze your existing audience, your existing customer base. They are probably using your product because they're a certain type of people. If you're on Tribe, you're a community. If you're, I don't know, an Apple, you buy Apple products, like you might be a little tech or you're like a hipster. Find out who uses, and I use Apple products myself. Find out who uses your products, figure out, who that is, and then figure out what problems are those people facing. They're buying our stuff for a reason. We're solving a problem. Like Morning Brew is solving a problem for people in the morning with our newsletter. We're making them smart, giving them up to date in a short time manner, and we're keeping it witty and engaging. What other problems might that persona face? For our example, right? Like, they're probably wanting to level up in their career. They're probably a little younger. They want to stay really sharp. Okay, let's build a product that also serves that customer in a different way. Instead of an audience-based strategy, we're using a community-based strategy. Right? What do people like about your product or like about your brand? Can you extend that into the community space? If you ask people why they like Morning Brew, it's like, yeah, it keeps me really up to date, but like, it's kind of funny. Like, I'm laughing the whole time. They have this really witty, irreverent tone. That's why people come to Morning Brew. And if that's your audience, you're trying to convert to a community, and then your community is like deadly serious and doesn't feel the same as why people liked your initial product, people are going to be confused. Like, wait, I thought this was Morning Brew. So all of our courses are the same. They're funny, they're irreverent, they're witty, they're kind of self-referential. That's what people like about Morning Brew. That's what they're going to like, at least some elements of our community. So try to port those feelings of affinity over. Then fourth, design the community. Again, this gets back to, you're a designer of experiences. Highlight the benefits that people are going to have, not the features. This is another thing that is just good business advice. People like to know what they're going to get out of it, not like how they're going to get it. The iPhone does not sell the camera because it's like, I don't even know how many megapixels my camera is. What I know is like, wow, it takes good photos that allow me to capture memories. All of their ads are like, you're at the baseball game and you get a photo with your grandpa. Like, it is the benefits of owning that product or the benefits of having a community that you are selling to people, not the features. Like, you know, our circle group has 20 spaces that we can put you in, and like, no one cares. Like, who am I talking to? What is the value I'm going to get? Sell benefits. And then the last thing, make sure you integrate the community product into your existing business ecosystem. You know, we're getting so many great insights from our community that goes through our products that we form this really great relationship with. They have great ideas that we need to figure out how to translate to other elements of the business too. Do not operate in silo. Make sure your community becomes integrated into the broader business. It is going to be a very virtuous cycle if you can pull that off. So that's what I have for you. This was a lot of fun. I'm very ready to be done talking and answer some questions. So thanks for listening. Again, hope this was valuable. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. Ari, is that cool?
That's totally cool.
All right.
That was amazing. I got a ton out of that. Absolutely loved it.
Thank you.
So thank you. We got about 11 minutes for questions. Just want to be respectful of everybody's time, including your own. First question is from Jacob Harris. Jacob, I'm taking the second question that you sent in. Are there any game-changing skills that community owners or community managers need to learn to offer the best possible experience?
Game-changing skills. I love this question. Thank you, Jacob. I'll say off the top of my head, you know, a great community manager or community owners, community builders, they tend to have a really diverse set of experiences. Because you're operating in a space where you have to relate to a lot of people, and you kind of have to be able to, you know, have a conversation, make everyone feel included. If you've lived a lot of different experiences, you can see how things might look from one angle and from another angle. And so if I were to give one advice to someone that wanted to build a great community, I would almost say, like, go live your life, go have unique experiences, go read books you wouldn't normally read, go sit in on other events you wouldn't normally sit in on, and start collecting a bunch of those dots, those unique dots. Then your job is to take the collection of dots and turn it to connecting the dots. Now, how do I connect these dots in a unique way that's unique to me? It's going to allow my community to offer a really unique experience. So my advice, it's not profound, is like, do a lot of different things, engage with a lot of different people, read a lot of different books, and start collecting your own set of dots.
This is from an anonymous attendee. They said, we're in the process of building a community, but also recently merged and are dealing with lots of moving parts. Before we launch an online community, any suggestions on creating in-person community events at a customer conference?
Anonymous. Thank you. And now it's mysterious. Like, am I talking like Bill Gates? I don't even know. Before we launch an online community, any suggestions on creating in-person community events at a customer conference? So yeah, I think anywhere you want to build kind of community-based events is great. I would say, like, you know, you're probably doing this, but at the in-person, get data, get emails. So if you do build an online experience after, you have that information. I will say, this is a broad point that I think is applicable to anything. In-person events are way different than online events. And it is really hard for us now that we've moved into like almost entirely digitally. We want to take what works in real life and we just want to port it over online. Sometimes that works, but sometimes it doesn't. And online has a lot of different benefits that you can play with that you can in real life and vice versa. So create a strategy that for your in-person events that is entirely separate from your strategy for online events, because they are different mediums. You need different strategies, different tactics to excel. But I love this idea of in-person community and then porting it on to online. The more chance you can give for your community members to interact with each other is always beneficial. And I can see in this case, like they get online and now they're like, oh, I remember like Jessica from like the in-person experience I had. There's already that sense of community forming. So anonymous, great question. And yes, you should do in-person events too.
It was actually Elon Musk, by the way.
Yeah, I assumed it seemed like a question you'd ask.
He's attended the last 3 webinars we've had too. So another question actually from Jacob Harris, which I really liked, was he recently founded an educational company in Argentina aimed at teaching English to Latin American working professionals. In January, he set up a community to create comprehensible input through photo, video, podcast, different types of media to give students access to English language and culture in one place at their convenience. It's taken a couple of months, but now it's picking up traction. The issue is that all of the members talk to Jacob and don't talk among each other. What are some of the strategies for increasing engagement among the members? He's already tried competitions, interactive events, in-person events, and that he's replying to a lot of members himself.
Yeah. So I think this is a really great question. One, shout out to what you built. It sounds awesome. So my advice is, yeah, it sounds like you have an issue where like people almost view you as the community and not the community as like a community, as a resource for everyone, which I think it tends to happen because like you built it, you're their closest connection. So you're spot on. You do want to find ways where you can remove yourself from the equation and people can still have connections. One advice I would give you is, could you put people in groups and give them some sort of shared project to work on? Like you're removed, you say, hey, these 6 people, we're going to give you this project. Let's do this date, work on it. Here's a deck. Here's some guidance. Make them like force them to basically interact with each other. And people form great relationships through shared experiences. So once they have that shared experience together, they're going to be like, oh, I actually really got to know these 5 people. Like I'm going to keep pinging them now in the community. I have these friends. I think if you do that enough times, you're going to form those bonds. The only other advice would be like set up some sort of coffee chat system where people have one-on-one conversations and you're removed from the equation. That's going to benefit you. You should definitely keep replying to everyone personally. That's a great community strategy. But I would try those 2 things, the group projects and the one-on-one coffee chat automations next.
Awesome. There were 2 questions that actually came into the chat that are pretty similar. One was a comment coming in from Leslie Palmer saying that they have a community platform set up. Do you have any insights for encouraging initial engagement? And another question actually came in that was pretty similar from James Stella that said, when starting from scratch, what's your strategy for seeding? So these are kind of like, you might be able to kill 2 birds with one stone here with your answer.
Yeah, so I'll address Leslie's. If you said it was part of our platform offerings, we're struggling to get people to participate. So, all right, this is a great question, Leslie. I have a few ways. I don't have the full context, but one thing that might be missing from your equation if you're getting low engagement is, have you tried adding friction to getting into the community? Because, one thing I see too is like people want to set up these communities that are like so easy to get into. Like some are like you automatically get put in this like Slack because you signed up for a program. And of course, then you get people that like aren't interested in being in the actual community. To me, if you get people that are actually interested in the community, there's a clear value prop, clear expectations set up, the engagement will in some part take care of itself. So my advice to you would be like, look at how people are getting into your community. Is there an extra step you could add? This sounds like counterintuitive. Is there an extra step you could add where people had to like sign a digital contract? Here's what our expectations are of this community. here's our values of this community. Do you actually want to be part of it? Yes, your numbers overall will go down, but your engagement is going to go up. You're going to get the people you actually want in that community that are valuable to that community. So think through the friction piece. And then the other thing is like when people get onboarded, send them a message personally. We will do this. And then we have a intros template that they can post. I will send them a template. My post is already in there. That's like name, job, previous work experience, fun fact, ask me about, location. Send them the template. Say, post this. And then they fill it out themselves. It gets them posting. It gets them commenting on other people. Sometimes they need a little initial push. And after that, they're good to go. So friction, and then like give them a template to post would be my two responses to that. Maybe that answered the other question. I kind of blanked out when you said it, to be honest. I was focused on Leslie's.
The other question was starting from scratch. How would you seed content?
Starting from scratch, how would I seed content?
Yeah, let me just make sure I get back to it so I don't put words in my mouth from James here. Had a number of comments in the chat. When starting from scratch, what is strategy for seeding? Would you answer it any differently?
I'll be honest. Vulnerability. I don't know what seeding means in this context.
Seeding, I think, would be to have like content already kind of established in the community, so it wasn't just like a blank place when members started to arrive.
Yeah, okay, that makes a lot of sense. So that's a great question. Yeah, so like have your strategy built out before you open the floodgates. There is this element of like no product's going to be perfect. Perfection's the enemy of good. Yes, yes, and yes. Launch when you're still like a little embarrassed and, but you need some sort of strategy. So we had our entire experience, the 8 weeks that people are going to have through our courses, mapped out entirely before they got in. Now we made changes on the fly. There was things we didn't think of. And when people got onboarded, we noticed them. That's going to happen kind of irregardless, but you should have your plan before you go. It's like planning is important, but plans are useless is probably what I'm trying to say. Like have a plan, map it out, and then understand that like the plan is you're going to have to change. But you should have a strategy from the jump.
Sweet. Last question I can pick up here is from Kimia Bahari. I think I pronounced that correctly. Great presentation, Kyle. It's coming from Kimia, but also from me. My question is, how far into establishing the business and navigating future directions would you start focusing on community building?
Okay, so if we're going to use the framework that I articulated, this like audience versus community framework, I don't think that there's necessarily, it's not like an order of operations, like build an audience, then build a community. But in some ways, it kind of is. Community needs a top of funnel. You need people to know about what you're doing. And in some ways, building an audience is really effective for that. And so, I don't know your business. I don't know what future directions you are pondering, but I would say like, get customers first, get audience first, make sure you understand, the value your company has to these personas. Once you have a little information, then I think you can pivot quite quickly into community building. There are products that are like, maybe community first products, and I'd have to look at those on a case-by-case basis. But at least in my experience, having the Morning Brew media company with a large audience first helped us really get off to a great start with our community. So that would be my advice. And thanks for the nice compliment about the presentation.
Amazing. So with that said, we are about to wrap up. I have posted the survey link directly in the chat. Would love your feedback. It should take you about 2 minutes. Just a reminder that we are going to be posting this webinar in our Campfire community, just showing you an example from a recent one that we did just before the end of the year with John O'Bacon. It'll look something like this. And, feel free to come in and engage and share your learnings in the comments, kind of like this. And you will also receive the recording by way of email. But Kyle, thank you so much. I don't think I'll ever have this opportunity again, but please tell Neil that I say hi, even though he doesn't know who I am.
All right,
Okay.
I will definitely tell Neil you say hi. I'll slack him right after, and hopefully you get the chance. You know, Neil does give a presentation in our courses, so that is another way to see him. But hey everyone, thank you so much for Tribe for having me, Ari for getting to know you, and then for everyone that listened. I hope this was valuable. That you found at least one nugget you could take away. And don't be shy, Kyle at Morning Brew. If you have any insights, feedback, anything, that's my email.
Amazing. Thank you so much, everybody. And please keep your eyes peeled for the next announcement for our next industry expert webinar. Kyle, take care.
See y'all. Thank you.
Bye.